Chapter 1021. Living. Gong Yi thanked him directly after reading this book, and he left. After all, some things are like this. No matter if this thing is true or not, but his mind is put in this place. If he doesn't give it, he pretends to be. If you don't know, then it's another matter. But he not only gave it to himself, he even explained to himself the origin of the thing, including whether he had been used. Although Luo Ziping didn't know, Gong Yi would try to make it happen. If this is really a feasible thing, then I will come back to find her as soon as possible, and then take her back to that world. After all, I don't know what I have become in that place, what it looks like. Moreover, at this moment, when Gong Yi came to the book, he couldn't help but feel a heavy feeling in his heart. For the first time, he felt that it was such a good thing that someone was concerned about, at least for himself. It was also a feeling that he never went to. What I have understood, and at the same time, it always makes people feel a little puzzled at this moment. But the eyes of the people around are still too mysterious, at least at this moment. It is still quite unfamiliar to Aluma. After several people moved some things on the island to the boat one after another, and moved some necessities, he set off straight away from the island. At the moment when the coastline disappeared, it was still there. She waved her hand to the shore with great effort, and she was very reluctant to look at that Shiliu, who was the only girl on the boat, and she left after staying for a while. How could he not be depressed? At this time, Gong Yi saw Aruma, who was still holding Bobo on the boat. Why didn't he call him into the captain's room? Aruma naturally knew that this time he wanted to. What I have to say to myself is nothing more than, I want to join myself. But this time some things are not so easy, and on this road, I heard that the Navy has been patrolling this place all the time. Is he so open and upright that he is not afraid of being caught? So at this moment, he has not waited until Gong Yi asked Aruma about this. At this time, Gong Yi just smiled. The destined thing will definitely come, but if his fate should not meet those admirals, then this time it will definitely not be the pirate group. When traveling at sea, not all of them are due to some reasons, and some of them come to a calendar because of some opportunities. Then you are not afraid that they will wait for you at that time. It will definitely be difficult to handle at that time. If all the people are arrested, what should you do? You are the most fake, but the few of them seem to be the same. Not a few cheap characters. But at this moment, Gong Yi smiled and didn't say anything more, but this was also a choice that Gong Yi had a hard time predicting. Admirals must be easy to see on this road. After all, the frequency of patrols on the high seas is also high, so they must find a suitable opportunity to spend this place. Of course, they should be recruited to this place first. Come in the team. But this time, I still want to ask, do you have any intention to join our pirate group? Then your worth will become as high as theirs. Don't you think this is a good thing? Gong Yi doesn't know if it makes sense, but as the saying goes, shouldn't those who want to lead people into their own traps have to do it step by step? Aluma is also not sure if he wants to join this pirate group. But now, after floating on the sea, I suddenly feel that there are not so many things to do by myself, but it may be the best result to follow them around this place. So without hesitation, for Aruma, he still agreed to such a thing, and Gong Yi announced such a good news after going out. That night, everyone held a bonfire party on the deck of the ship, but it also made everyone not expect that they were caught by the admiral the next day, and it could be said that they were chased by the others' warships for several times. Nautical miles. Later, I didn't want to run anymore, so I simply stopped and waited for the admiral's fleet to rush up. The other party seemed to think that there was a fraud, and slowly wandered in that place until it was confirmed that there was no danger. Bring the team up one by one. This made Gong Yi stunned for a moment. He didn't expect them to have such thoughts. Could it be that his upright pirates would still do those insidious villains to them? Isn't that what they used to deal with themselves all the time? Of the pirates, the real pirates disdain to use those humble and vile means. Chapter 1022, Admiral 3rd. But at the same time, there are some things that are completely beyond my budget. It can be said that I did not expect the admiral to chase after so long. At the beginning, a few people were still there. There was no sleep on the deck, and there were only a few people who were patrolling during the night. Just a substitute. At this moment, a sharp-eyed discovery was made. There was an inexplicable warship approaching his pirate ship, so without hesitation, Lan Ying rushed over, shook Gong Yi awake, and saw sleepy-eyed Gong Yi finally opened his eyes. The Blue Sakura Alliance forced Fang Yuan to him, and spoke inarticulately, meaning to gesture to him and let him take a look at the warship next to him. At this time, Gong Yi suddenly came back to his senses. Much awake. When I picked up the telescope and looked out, I found that it was a naval admiral, a warship under his banner, so he quickly called all the crew members on board, raised the sails, and quickly started a protracted battle with them. But to be honest, although it is said that the pirate ship is relatively rich in resources, they have already taken some of them for Shiryu on that small island just now. Did they go to the next small island to get supplies? So from the current point of view, if only with such resource consumption, the pirate ship will definitely not be able to pass this level. So after synthesizing all the things, Gong Yi decided not to spend it with them, but waited for them at the port of call next to them. If you guessed correctly, the Admiral's warship should be temporarily there today. Take a rest at this place. If you can't escape, you can't just look at yourself. So without hesitation, Gong Yi will wait at that place, and all the crew on the ship are also maintaining a vigilance state. After all, waiting for them and being caught are just two different concepts. At this time, Gong Yi didn't think that some of them felt hungry, so Yu, who was on the side, prepared all the food this morning, and took out all the food. When everyone finished eating and packed up, they found them. The warship swayed over, and then took them to the island. It has to be said that this is a relatively prosperous place for trade. But when they saw that they were wearing pirate clothes, many people avoided them decisively. Only one child rushed over and handed Gong Yi a lollipop, but it was obvious that he was the captain at the head, but at this time his family suddenly rushed over and pulled the child away, as if to keep him from getting in touch with Gong Yi. This made several people around couldn't help laughing in depression. Director Gong Yi didn't think it was anything, but there were also some things that had indeed become different. As a person, it was definitely impossible for him to do something unilaterally. Moreover, it is still under the control of the Admiral. After a few people actually stepped into the insurance under the command of the Admiral immediately asked to see Gong Yi. Naturally, Gong Yi would not refuse, and he just wanted to take a look. What kind of person is the general? An old man with a beard, or a strong man like a cow? But in fact, after meeting him, he couldn't help but shocked him a little. He was a pure and white boy. It can be said that it seems that there are only 30 outcroppings, which makes Gong Yi a little surprised. Would such a clean person choose to be an admiral? This is indeed something that he has not considered at all. Don't they all hate contact with pirates the most? But the moment he saw himself, there was an expression of extreme interest on his face. I heard your name before, but I didn't expect to finally meet you this time. Before, because you were fighting with Marshal Tuji, all the buildings on that island collapsed. After we received the notification later, Duent go to that place to search, and found that there is no life form left behind, so after this interception, you just want to inquire about this aspect, and by the way, let's talk about it. Ask some other relevant questions. After all, arresting a pirate group is something that many navies cannot do. Moreover, he has caught a man worth 600 million. It is definitely impossible to let him go so easily. Of course, he is doing everything. Before being interrogated and tortured, he must first understand all these recent events. After all, although the Admiral of the Navy is said to be a person of the same type in the entire ocean, in fact, what happened at the end of the pirate has nothing to do with him at all, and it can even be said that they will not take the initiative to disclose any information to him. News, and some people who see the Navy coming to inquire about the news, will quickly shut the door of the bar. This is a common conclusion. Chapter 1023. Arrest. When everyone sees the Navy, they will have the same thoughts and reactions, but at this moment Gong Yi actually has no unnecessary resistance. After all, she does not need to do more things. The room is not incompatible. But at this moment, Gong Yi also realized that the other party should have no good intentions, otherwise how could he look at him like this? But at the same time, there are some things that make him not quite understand. If he can find a breakthrough in this, if you do, then there is no doubt that you choose to listen to the words of the Admiral, which is naturally a good thing. So Gong Yi has no intention of resisting, not to mention that he has signed a new crew member of the pirate group. Can't let Aruma find out that there is nothing good when he joins the crew. So he said that he should try his best to restrain his behavior this time, so he obeyed and helped the Admiral to answer many questions that day. The other party was a little surprised when he saw this. Maybe he didn't expect Gong Yi to be so obedient. But that's not the case. Gong Yi is also because he solved Shiryu's trouble before, so now I feel a little happy. After all, some things are like this. Is it possible to take other people's mistakes to punish himself? This is too bad. It's reasonable, and Gong Yi wouldn't be stupid enough to do such a thing. So at this moment, Aruma and the others were escorted to another cell, and when Gong Yi's questioning was over, he was sent directly to him. Sent back, there one. In the prison. At this time, Aruma couldn't help but look at Gong Yi. He didn't expect that he would be successful on the first day of joining the team, bringing bad luck to everyone. At this time, Lan Ying patted him on the shoulder, indicating that he was nothing. Like this, it's just a very common thing to do. As for being caught by them, it's not because these people don't want to have sex with these Navy warships. After all, the sea is infinitely volatile, and once the weather is calm, there is no fluctuation, but if you speed up, there may be a lot of trouble, and the resources on board are not enough. I didn't consider that things would develop to this level, but you have to believe that it's definitely not your problem. Each of us will be responsible, not to mention that there are some things that seem to be happening now, and we can't say for sure. Let's take one step at a time. After all, if every step is followed step by step, it will make people feel too scary. Lan Ying was comforting Aluma on the side, and Bobo grabbed his trousers and kept pulling her to the side, which seemed to signal that he wanted to see something. At this time, everyone looked at Bobo, and he stretched out his claws to pull out the piled stones in a corner, and found that it was a place similar to a dog hole. These dozen people couldn't help but turn their eyes and make a plan. Now that they will be detained in this place for so long, they will dig a hole after the interrogation, until this is expanded to the point where everyone can get away from it. After the place is passed, can you just leave from this place? This way you can avoid the search by the Navy, and you can successfully put all the resources on the ship at night, and leave after a supply circle. But at this moment, the most difficult thing for Gong Yi to do is that Admiral seems to be very interested in himself, and he has to interrogate himself a few times every day to ask if there are any emergencies at sea recently. Yes, this makes me feel quite annoyed. But he couldn't just prevaricate a few words. After all, if the people who had placed them on the island 2 times before were actually searched by them when they were patrolling, they would definitely have to check and prove it. As for such a person who traveled through time and space, how could there be such a proof that he was able to solve all of this because he joined such a body? Not only has the proof of identity, but even everything can be put together, but he is different, and he has never asked Luo Zipping about his identity. After all, he lives under Marshal Tucci. After so long, if you don't even have an identity, you probably won't be hired. And this city has already been built. It must be famous far and near. He has a name. It is a pity that only he does not know, but at this time Gong Yi should be more worried about himself. After all, the Admiral of the Navy has sent you a new message recently. It is said that Gong Yi, who is worth 600 million yuan, has been arrested. But at this time, their hole is almost dug. If they run away at this time, will they be quickly captured? But Gong Yi didn't plan to think about this, and the fruit that was copied from Marshal Tucci before. I seem to have overlooked the skills of the fighters. You can directly go through the land and read the ununderlined version of the novel. Please download Filu's novel. Read the latest chapter and LT, otherwise it will be banned. Chapter 1024. Question. Then why didn't he just leave here and wait for everyone to finish digging the hole? Gong Yi was a little puzzled by then, so he had to go back and don't let them fill the hole with stones, then use some quilts, and sheets, and tie them together. Make it look like a few people are lying on the bed, so that when they leave at night, it's okay, this person's eyes, otherwise they will be discovered by the time, and it will be difficult to do if they leave. Let's not talk about whether the supplies can be moved on the ship, I'm afraid it's a question of whether or not to leave. And the Navy is not. Just kidding, they must have a development and jurisdiction, but for these people, it can't stop them. Of course, I don't mean to despise them, it's just that the children are more agile. That's it. And at this moment, all the people are already gearing up to wait, especially Lan Ying, who jumped up and was very excited, and had a very happy chat with Bobo on the side, although he didn't understand that the two of them were blind gesturing something, but it can't be seen that the smiles on their faces are irreplaceable. He never thought that breaking out of prison would make him so happy, and then taking her to eat something good, wouldn't he jump for joy? After all, when he was doing business in that place before, he was eating continuously, and he didn't think about how to deal with the things in front of him. This really gave him a headache. In the future, in case some good things are ruined because of his habit, what can be done? At the same time, it also makes it more difficult for Aruma to do things. Is he going to become a wanted criminal when he just bought the goods? Usually, it takes several months to be loaded, and then the traces are slowly discovered. It can be regarded as famous on the list, but this is also one thing that makes him particularly excited. But Gong Yi didn't think about it. He thought that a quiet person like Aruma would definitely not like it, but he felt very happy because of this incident. He also became a member of the wanted criminal. This excitement suddenly made Gong Yi feel very cute, and even make Gong Yi feel that everyone is a strange state. After all, everyone is happy for different reasons. One is to become a wanted criminal, and the other is to escape from prison. On the contrary, he looks at the chef beside him. I flipped through the recipes inside, how I looked at it and how it violated the harmony. This time I was silent, not knowing what to say. Forget it, it would be better not to say that it would save others' disapproval, but at the same time, the bell outside suddenly rang, and everyone was ready. At this moment, Gong Yi snapped his fingers, and they grabbed their clothes, and then they wore the same telepathic frequency as they had, and went out from the ground like this. Then I came to a platform outside. That place is not illuminated by the lights, which means that there will be no one to monitor that place, and it is a transfer station for materials. If you can get it in that place. If a wave of supplies is successfully moved to the ship, then a big trouble should be solved in the next journey. But at the same time, Lan Ying was attracted by the delicious food again. Aruma watched it and brought it back by the way. At this time, Gong Yi made a gesture at him, and Aruma quickly stopped. I understand, then take this delicious food and let Lan Ying go there to attract people away. After all, he is not wearing a prison uniform. So it is naturally the easiest thing to attract people to leave, but no one thought that Lan Ying's father was in this prison, and he was a member of the 4 Emperor Thieves, but because of some other reasons in the middle, he was arrested and locked in this place, and now he recognizes Lan Ying at once. Sensing that someone was locked in the dark, and kept staring at them, Gong Yi quickly raised his head, and when he found out it was the man, his eyes widened. If it was him, then things would become more complicated. A thief is not. I can afford it with my current strength. The man also lowered his head and glanced at him, only to realize that he nodded involuntarily in the future, and then turned his head, but he couldn't tell. She should be trying to take Lan Ying back, but Gong Yi will never give in. If he wants to give up, he will throw it away. If he wants to, then it is too pitiful. As himself, he is his boss, and it is even less likely that he would allow such a thing to happen. If he cherished and asked himself to take over the child, it would be another way of saying it, but his eyes were like that. Not a good ending. Chapter 1025, Leave. I must be more sensible than that, and I understand the meaning in that look better. After all, the same man is too sensitive to detect such looks, but I can't blame myself. I can only say that there are some things that are not right. Just the same. But this man's face must represent something, otherwise he wouldn't look like Lan Ying, at least in Gong Yi. view, Lan Ying must not be taken away. After all, after he joined this pirate group, some things have long been doomed. Since he is a member of the child, he cannot be bullied casually, and this person is also his father. He never came to ask for his daughter before, but now he comes after knowing the truth of everything, which makes people feel that there are some ulterior motives. Since it was like this, I couldn't let Lan Ying go with him, so the two men were fighting with each other, and after looking at each other, Gong Yi quickly turned Lan Ying's hand and left from there. Then he moved a lot of supplies onto the ship, and the other party didn't call anyone to stop them. He just watched them leave quietly. At this time, he couldn't help but feel a little strange. How could things develop so smoothly? Did he want to understand something? This is impossible at all, or he has already made second-hand preparations to confirm Gong Yi that this idea may be more sincere. After all, he doesn't think that man will have any other thoughts about him. If your father told you that he wanted you to leave with him, would you choose to agree to him? At this time, Lan Ying was still there, eating. After hearing this question, I couldn't help but be stunned for a while. It turns out that I have a father. I wanted to see his confused expression, so I sighed and didn't do any more. What kind of actions? After all, some things are like this, he can't be forced to make a choice among them. But Lan Ying clearly showed a very unwillingness to leave. After all, this place still has you, and she will cook a lot of delicious food for her, but she may not be treated like this when she returns home. After such a reason, Gong Yi couldn't help laughing and laughing. Should I be thankful that I hired a chef, so that she didn't leave so quickly, or should I be thankful that the people in his family didn't give him food? These 2 points are combined together. Waiting for Gong Yi to have some, I don't know what to say, but the atmosphere was very happy for a time, and I didn't need to do any way to save it. Several people loading things onto the boat, Gong Yi completely failed to consider that the boat had been anchored below, which proved that if no one brought the key, they might have. I can't leave at all today, but the person who inspected this captain recently is not there. This made Gong Yi quite a headache, so he took the initiative to go into the water to see the thing. Fortunately, the search was not very deep, but because there were some fixed things, and then locked it with a key, which makes it more difficult to do. But at the same time, there must be no problem for him. Gong Yi, who did not hesitate, just took out his previous momentum, opened this thing, and then pulled the rope of the anchor, signaling them to pull him. Go up. The hair below is locked. It seems that they should have made all preparations. First move things back tonight, and then go back to the building for one night. Pay attention to some unprofitable storage rooms inside. Otherwise, they will definitely think of it when they discover it the next day, and then every ship will come to look for it, and they will soon find out that we sneaked out at night, and then it is better to leave directly. After hearing this, Aruma asked why he didn't leave immediately, which made Gong Yi give him a look at him in disgust. The lock was not able to be opened by himself, and it was almost snowing for all the people. But it's actually quite difficult to guarantee something in the water. Therefore, at this moment, there are some things that cannot be too sure, let alone do some unnecessary struggle, so what to do at this moment has been shown very clearly, but at this moment, at the same time, everything has developed to a high-level gathering time. Because if he leaves the next day, the pirate ship is facing Lan Ying's father's window, which means that several people will meet again. Maybe he thinks that these people will not leave today and will wait for tomorrow, so it is natural to say that it is possible to leave today to solve it immediately, but the people under him have not considered themselves at all. They were carrying those things silently, while Gong Yi was lurking up and down in the water, trying to find how to open the lock, and finally used a small iron wire with many persistent efforts. I finally got around that lock. To see the underlined version of the novel, please download Fei Lu's novel. Read the latest chapter. Baidu search 99 Playmates to find 99 Novel Network and LT. Chapter 1026. Escape, first. Moreover, the lock did not make a sound after it fell into the water and was no longer bound. In addition, the lights on the bottom of the sea were dim and it was night. Gong Yi did not realize that the thing had fallen. It was not until after several attempts that he found that the lock was too early. "It's gone, what are you still doing here?" In desperation, he walked over to the side, but at this time, a bright light suddenly radiated from the sea. Gong Yi hesitated for a while, then went back to the sea to take a breath, and when he went back again, he found that the thing had disappeared. And that gleaming place is gone, it looks like a sudden evaporation from the world. This made Gong Yi a little curious, what exactly is that thing and why it shines in this place, or is he deliberately placed in this place to attract his attention? All of this really made Gong Yi a little confused, but when he went up, he found that all the supplies had been swept away. No wonder the people of the pirate group really have faster hands and feet. In just 10 minutes, in a few minutes, several large boxes of supplies have been sorted out. After Gong Yi went ashore, he found that Lan Ying was counting the numbers on the other side, while Mayor and Yu cleaned up the kitchen and counted the rest, feeling that everyone was in an orderly manner. "I had to go down there to open that lock, and I also found something shining brightly." No one thought that not only did the thing not leave, but even followed him to the place where it was raining. Even Gong Yi didn't even think about it himself. But at the moment when their ship was started, the nameless sound even attracted a pair of Navy patrolmen next to them, and at this moment there were some things that could not be said. They rushed over. The gun was still in his hand, fearing that the hull would be damaged. So without hesitation, Gong Yi directly directed them to grow their hair, then beat everyone to the head, and left the port directly, and those guns also had a range, and they didn't chase after them. Fortunately, the boat was not injured. At this time, Aruma remembered and asked about their next route. "This is Gong Yi, look at the book in his hand, he can give himself an answer, but there are some things that must be decided. If you can find a way to leave this place, you have chosen to leave here. Going back to the world that I should have brought with me, I still linger in this place." However, when he returned to his bedroom to read, Mayor, who was patrolling the deck outside, noticed that someone seemed to be chasing after him. When he took a closer look, he found that it was the Navy's fast warship. This fleet is actually quite famous, and can catch up with pirates who have already escaped in front of them within 100 nautical miles. In fact, this is also a fleet that has been frightening all pirates, but they consume a lot of things. If they didn't catch some necessary people, the Navy would never start such a fleet. So at this moment, Mayor immediately asked Aruma to notify Gong Yi. When Gong Yi came to the deck again, he found that those people were really chasing after him, as if he was afraid that some fish slipped through the net and left the same. At this moment, Gong Yi also ordered the turnover to start a chase battle. As long as it can escape beyond the range of 100 nautical miles, it will basically not be able to catch up, and there will be no chance. In this fierce chasing battle, Bobo was also greatly affected. After all, in the process of high-speed driving, the pirate ship kept going up and down, and it was also disturbed to a certain extent, so his body should be ca and stand it, anyway. During this trip, the whimpering sound made everyone feel very distressed, but they didn't know how to solve it. After all, you can't just let it go. Those people will definitely have nothing good to do when they sit down, not to mention that Gong Yi's worth of 600 million is still in this place. Once he is really arrested, some things will be unpredictable. But at this moment, at the moment when the Navy was about to buy it, everything around had a very strange change, turning into a place composed of some white fog, as if the person who was looking for the ocean just disappeared without a trace. No one knew what this was, and even Gong Yi on the side couldn't help but hesitate for a while, reached out and touched the white mist in front of him. It would be great if he could judge whether this thing was dangerous or not. After all, everything around him really made him feel. People find it unpredictable. Just now, the sound of the Navy shouting and shouting from behind was slowly cut off by the white fog, as if the moment just now stepped into the territory of this place, and after entering, it is no longer possible to go out one way. Chapter 1027. Illusion. There was nothing in this white fog, only the sound of the boat passing through the water, and the sound of many water droplets falling. Those sounds were focused together, but Gong Yi couldn't tell which direction to go. Go. But at this time, an unknown creature appeared at the end of the water. It looked like an octopus and another, but at least at this moment, Gong Yi did not dare to jump to conclusions, but Gong Yi specifically told all the crew members on the ship made no noise and went around him like this. After all, it seems now that if he is a dangerous income, at least half of the disaster can be avoided, and the hull has not been repaired for a long time. If he is really shocked this time, I am afraid it will be difficult to repair it again. It's getting harder. Several people remained silent until Bo accidentally made a sound. All the eyes around him focused on Bobo. At this time Aruma resolutely hid it in his arms. Facing the monster's eyes, I have to say that it was a truly heart-wrenching moment. After all, everything seemed to be stopped at that moment. No one knows what's going to happen next, and no one's going to understand where these things will come from, but it has to be said that the monster is looking at them in a dramatic way, so the crew around are all right. He developed a perfect 10 resistance. But the monster just glanced at him, then turned his head and didn't stop there. However, at this time, it was also a new discovery for Gong Yi. I didn't expect there would be such a monster at sea. Exist. It seems that the will of the sea monster should be true, not false, and some of the strange things recorded above should also be true, so I can use this to explore the way home. After all, these things are actually similar to some monsters in the place where I live. If I can find the same place, it is not far away from leaving, so I thought of this. After that, Gong Yi, who didn't hesitate, just drew a next step directly in his heart. I have to say that he is indeed a genius in planning, at least in terms of aspects, he is even better. In a short period of time, Gong Yi has quickly sorted out all the things he should do, and put them in one way. Line up. Continuing to go inside, the surrounding scene is slowly fading, as if they will be dissipated into nothingness at some point. After thinking about this, Gong Yi looked around again, wanting to tell them what he's going to do next, or at least prepare him. But who would have thought that the moment he turned his head, he found that all these things had disappeared, those people had disappeared, and he was the only one standing on this deck, as if those companions just now were just like a dream. After thinking about this, Gong Yi started looking around for someone. However, he found that no matter how much he shouted, there was no response. If such a thing is the premise, then he should really question what to do next. After all, this is not a joke. And at this moment, Gong Yi saw Marshal Tucci suddenly appear in front of him, and the two looked very similar. However, I can still feel from the breath on the body that this should not be a person, but it is really difficult to calculate such a situation as to what method the two of them used to distinguish themselves. However, at this moment there are some things that are completely beyond their budget. In this white fog, he stood face to face with him on the deck, and then some other people also appeared around him. They grabbed their hands and feet one after another, which made Gong Yi everything. It was terrifying. After all, it was indeed the first time such a thing had happened. However, something else happened in the next second. My previous companions were escorted out from all directions, and each one was followed by the same man, and all their behaviors, expressions, even lift the arcs of the hands are all the same, and it is difficult to see any flaws between them. In addition, the appearance is also the same, which makes Gong Yi feel like a doppelganger, but the action of turning over and raising his hand is not the same as everything else, and if this is a doppelganger, then in the end that body, where is this that makes Gong Yi look at Aluma? If he is really his own brother, then at this moment, no matter what, he will give himself this look, but the other party doesn't. At this time Gong Yi understood everything. Chapter 1028. It's just a blindfold, it's definitely not the real Alma, and their group should still be looking at themselves on the deck. At this time, they don't need to make more actions, they just need to wait quietly. My mind became more and more clear. Then just wait for them to go up in front of them, they don't pose any threat to themselves, anyway. After leaving such an environment, as long as everything returns to normal, it is enough, but at this time the big monster instead. He ran right in front of him all of a sudden. She waved her tentacles up and down, and then kept moving in her direction. I have to say that this monster is indeed a bit fierce, and even that. The big owl Kiba has already sticked out the corner of his mouth, just like this. Saying hello to himself, Gong Yi's face is calm, but there is still some resistance in his heart. After seeing this scene, Gong Yi directly took the sword and stabbed to the other side without hesitation, but at the same time the other party didn't have any feeling, and the sword went straight through the void and came to the other side, and there was no leave any traces on her body, but it also makes Gong Yi feel that all this should be an illusion. It was just such a situation that he deliberately created in front of him. It seems that he should have considered all the possibilities here, but he did not count the interactions between himself and the crew. The plot. But this was a feasible breakthrough point for me, so Gong Yi quickly changed direction and stabbed around again. No matter what the point was, he had to leave this place as quickly as possible. But the monster didn't intend to let him go in the shortest time, and even kept entangled around him, as if he could stop himself from leaving this place if he found a little trace here. Gong Yi also thought of the monster mentioned in the book that he could give him earlier, which should be from the same source as him. After all, it can't be seen that the two of them should be of the same type, but at the same time, there is one thing that makes Gong Yi not quite understand: why did he stop himself? There is no relationship between the two. And he is only one, the captain of a certain pirate ship at sea. If he really wants to find a big enemy, then he should put this account on his own head. But just when a breeze blew suddenly, the image of the thing in front of him suddenly spread out, which made Gong Yi suddenly think of a good master. When his attack came again, Gong Yi directly opened his mouth and blew a breath, trying to blow away all the things that were blowing in front of him. Unsurprisingly, it was finally successful under the automatic, but at the same time, there was one thing that surprised Gong Yi, because after such a fog, since Mayer was standing behind, the owner of the Laowangtai was waving his hands indiscriminately in this place. It seemed that the air currents and attacks just now should be sent out by him, and he should be trapped in the same place as himself. In an environment, I just don't know how he moved so much, as if he was stimulated. Of course, this is only what is seen, and the real thing may have to wait for the next confrontation before the truth can slowly emerge. But at the same time, Gong Yi was very surprised by this concession and unexpected behavior, but at least his plan was half successful, so he slowly approached Mayer in front of him, and then helped him remove some of the phantoms in front of him. They were gently brushed away. After all, the only way to shorten the time everyone was awake as soon as possible. Mayer is the first one. When it is really resolved, I find that everyone around is like this. Each of them is standing opposite each other, and both sides are constantly using some strange things. Action. Of those weapons and monsters. Of course, after he wakes up at this moment, basically the rest of the people are almost the same, only a few unknown people are still waving randomly in that place. But at this time, Lan Ying's group should be considered the most peaceful. Opposite it is Bobo, a short-handed and short-footed sea fox and a girl who only knows how to eat and drink, and there is absolutely no threat between the two. At this time, Lan Ying was holding an air-like thing in her hand and kept giggling, and at this time, Bobo fell asleep directly. I have to say that such a combination really surprised me, but seeing them in this way, everyone will smile, and everyone knows why. At this time, Aruma also slowly came out of that environment, and it can only be said that no one else can help with all this. Chapter 1029, Mysterious Island. Because it seems that they can't wake them up, but they can get out of the environment. It should be the speed of awakening. However, at this moment, Gong Yi found that the surrounding environment was slowly fading, and then again once again, their original colors emerged, and such a layer of white mist slowly faded away. At this time, what appeared in front of everyone was an environment that had never been reached. However, at this time, the fleet also appeared in their field of vision. It seems that they should also be in the white fog. After all, they came here. The direction was met. They should never have escaped as fast as Gong Yi and his party. After all, there are many people with different thoughts in the center of the warship, and only when everyone wakes up can they successfully reach another port. But at this time, Bobo was still asleep on the bed, and suddenly heard a familiar sound. She got up, and Aruma was surprised when she saw this, but she tried hard to a look of surprise was hidden in his eyes. At this time, he jumped up to the deck, and Gongyi also heard the movement at the same time, so he took a step forward and wanted to take a look, only to find that Bobo was looking at the environment on that side very curiously. I have to say that it is a place similar to the Peach Blossom Spring, and the whole place reveals a sense of tranquility. But it is not difficult to see that this is a very beautiful environment. Although it is beautiful, it still reveals danger. Gongyi is convinced of this, but Bobo seems to be very familiar with this environment. Is this what he has been looking for? His hometown. He has also helped to search for a long time at sea, but he has not even a bit of information, but now I found that his hometown does not seem to be the same. But at the same time, Bobo jumped off the boat at this moment and reached the shore, so several people started to drop anchor, then tied the boat, followed Gongyi's footsteps and got off the boat to this small island. Birds and flowers are fragrant in this place, it should be like spring all year round, otherwise how could it be so supportive? However, when I walked to this place, I saw that there were many children and adults coming and going. Some of them had tails like Bobo, and some of them were directly human, which made Gongyi have some curious, could this place be a place where humans and sea foxes can live together? If this is the case, it must be one for Bobo, but the person at the next door stopped them all at once, but let Bobo go. We are with him, can you let us go too, or we are not big, don't worry, he is alone in it. At this time, the man glanced sideways at them, but didn't speak, which made everyone curious, what was the reason, but at this time Gongyi was keenly aware that they seemed to be unable to understand the language. So saying this, the sea fox couldn't understand their speech, because there was a little sea fox next to him, Squeak. Woo Woo said some inexplicable words, although he didn't understand it, it was not difficult to see that there is no malice towards himself. And these, the kind of light that flickers in the eyes of the sea fox is very familiar to Gongyi, it is the same look as Bobo. I have to say that they should not be malicious, but they don't understand, that's it. But at this time, Bobo was gone and never looked back. In desperation, several people had to continue to go back to the bed. Was squatting in that place, waiting for him to come back, but after a long time there was nothing, which made everyone have another idea. Could it be that he found his family there, so he couldn't come back just when a few people were about to fall asleep at night? Bobo suddenly appeared at the door of the cabin, and he was slightly different from some sea foxes in this place. At least one can tell that this is their boar, not some other little foxes on this island. He bounced back over there, and then threw himself into Aruma's arms. One person and one fox were making vivid gestures by the side, as if they were telling some interesting stories on the island. Occasionally, Aruma would chuckle twice, while Lan Ying, who was beside him, was looking at the two of them and gestured to each other. This scene made Gongyi shake his head. Who can understand what's going on here? But I have to say that this small island is indeed a little strange. You have to pass through a huge white fog to get to this place. It can be seen that if humans are not allowed to enter the language and cannot understand the language, then the type of people that appear in it should be some sea foxes who can change shape. Otherwise, how can we explain such a situation? It cannot be intentional. Stop these people and don't let them in. Chapter 1030, Phantom. But things are also unpredictable. After chatting for a while, everyone found that Bobo had returned to that small village again, and he left in the dead of night to her place. But the other party did not propose to take them into the interior of this small village, and Aruma did not test him, anyway. If Bobo really wants to take them there, there will definitely be a chance, but the next morning, when a few people woke up, they found that the deck was already full of sea foxes. This scene could not help shocking everyone, and even just woke up. Gongyi stepped directly from the deck above. No one thought of this. The sea foxes would stand in that place and line up like this, well behaved, like some small animals waiting to be fed in that place. This scene made Lan Ying's beastly furious, so she rushed to the family and squeezed, but she didn't dare to take their facial muscles, but I felt extremely good. I have to say that they are all small animals carved out of the same mold as Bobo, and each of them exudes those cute atmospheres. Even Aruma couldn't bear it at this time, and ran to the group of sea foxes. Among them, Bobo was found. It has to be said that this little animal is indeed an exciting existence, but at this moment, Gongyi also found that something around him has changed. It is not the same, at least the fence of the village is in a place that makes it difficult for them to enter. Was broken in between. It seems to be those. The humanoids transformed by the sea fox have cleaned up all those things. Is this a welcome to them? But at the same time, Gongyi is not too careless. After all, the sea fox's mind is not I haven't figured it out. If there are any other emergencies at that time, I must make a second-hand preparation, otherwise, these people on board will all suffer. And even if Bobo can let them in the small village, it doesn't mean that it can maintain all the things happening. Once some emergencies happen, will it be necessary to fill this hole with himself? It is an impossible thing at all, and it seems that he is not stupid enough to do such a thing, and he will not be slaughtered by others, but at the same time, it can be seen that these sea fox seems to want to hurt himself. They just watched from a distance, thinking that they had a conversation. After realizing this idea, Gongyi, who did not hesitate, just stood aside and opened a passage to the sea fox door. Since they stood on the deck, I should have wanted to visit this place. But the sea foxes were unmoved. At this time, Bobo came out and described him vividly for a while. Only then did Gongyi understand the reason. It turned out that they just wanted to have it was just a big battle to welcome them into the village, and there was not much else to do. Wanted to do was the point that shocked Gongyi. I didn't expect Bobo to have such an ability to convince those stubborn foxes to expose everything at this time. Of course, there are some things that are not it's not something I can say accurately by myself, and there are some things that are developing slowly and gradually. He said he wanted us to go to the island as a guest. If you think it's appropriate, just leave with them. I'd better adjust some accessories on the ship here. I always feel that something is not right for Meyer. As the guardian of the watchtower, if there is no need, why not stay with us? At this time, Aruma on the side found that Meyer's eyes were bursting out. Curious eyes, but at this time, after being stopped by Gongyi, it dimmed a bit. In desperation, as a newcomer to the pirates, Aruma applied to exchange with Meyer. Fortunately, at this moment, Meyer's eyes were more filled with joy, and Gongyi did not call him after seeing this scene. And did not prevent the two of them from exchanging responsibilities in this place, only knowing that there are some things that can't be done. But if they are attacked in that place, she can be prepared to be in the rear. Of course, Bobo did not force everyone to accompany her to the village at this moment. Gathered together. Then they were led in by the large force of the sea fox, and then the fence was sealed again, and then the people who went in were cut off from the outside world. I have to say this. What the sea fox does is indeed a double guarantee. After all, once the people who come in get in touch with the outside world and want to block this place, then there are some things that cannot be done, so they also have a reason for doing so. Chapter 1031. Basic. But also at this moment, some things have been set the tone. If you continue to do it like this, there may be some other things change, so at this moment Gongyi must make the most correct choice. And this choice is undoubtedly, stay alone to accompany you in this place to meet up. No matter what happens, it will be easy to deal with. Otherwise, when they come back, they find that there is no one on the boat. Even if they are in a hurry and want to, it's useless to leave from this place. Those sea foxes will quickly catch up, because they don't know what the situation is now, and Gongyi doesn't dare to be too sure. And these ambiguity seems to be a more malicious animal to me. The way they look at themselves and look at Bobo are completely two types. It can be said that taking them to visit the village should be the result of Bobo's struggle. But in fact they don't seem to welcome these people. So at least for Gongyi, he wouldn't take risks, and he wouldn't take the initiative to do such a thing, after all, if he really wanted to enter that village. I saw it just now. After stuffing it in, the fence in that place will be sealed. Once you are also sealed in, then everything can only be done with the flow, then everything is an unknown situation. The unsolved mysteries below. Be honest, at least Gong Yi doesn't want to do such a thing, and he doesn't want everything to be controlled by others, and he hopes that everything can be judged by himself, and he will be in charge of everything. But the same thing cannot be done every time. There are still many things that take a long time to get familiar with, but at this time, Aruma chose to stay with the wood factory without hesitation. This place accompanies me, and waiting for them to come out is quite surprising to me. I thought that Aruma wasn't good enough before, and this time I should go with him to visit the sea fox's hometown, but at this time, the two of them chatted a lot about Gong Yi in their spare time on the deck. There is also the story of Aruma. What he mentions is something that happened to him in that world, not that he came to this place to join the pirate group and grow seeds. Actually, I have two memories. I don't feel like I have lived in the world purely. I am still there. I have stayed in other places for a while, and I have been emotional about them. I have also done something related to them, but at the same time, the most unforgettable part is the one in the past. After all, that place is full of memories for many years. There is nothing in that place, and there is no such a good environment without such a sea of Wangyang. But the only thing that place has is a person's culture. Although everyone is so despicable and so unpredictable and unacceptable, he can always exude some special atmosphere. You don't want to leave around him. After hearing this, Aruma couldn't help but laugh easily. Sometimes things are like this, and they can always react differently when they are unexpected. Maybe at a certain moment, when you miss them, you feel that they are so real and unpredictable, but at this moment, the Aruma that Gong Yi asked about was about the things he recalled before. Aruma. Shaking his head, he said something surprising. It turned out that he lost his memory before the age of 14. It was not until he was adopted by an adoptive family that he gradually began to have a record of memories. Of course, going to her new home was not always a good life. Even half of it was spent in the process of being disrupted. But for him, he didn't think there was anything wrong with this life at all. Instead, he thought that for himself, it might be a magic in life, but at least at this moment, after Gong Yi heard his past, I can't help but sigh with emotion. After all, some things cannot develop in the direction that I think. But at least Aruma's situation is good enough. At least he still has a family of adoptive parents waiting for her in this place, and the family that really belongs to Gong Yi has long since disappeared in the passage of space. Just two people, especially speculative. In the process of speaking, there was a sudden loud whistling sound from the side of the Sea Fox village, as if something had rioted in that place. This made the two of them quickly climb up from the deck, and when they got there, Ghost Ganna looked at the scene below, but found that there was nothing, except that scream. There was nothing else. Originally thought that Lan Ying and the others knew how to have fun. They should come out one day, but they didn't. Chapter 1032. Expectation, 3rd. Even Bobo didn't come out to report the news to them. All this made Gong Yi feel that something was wrong, as if something had been ignored, but at this moment, he definitely didn't have that much time and ability to think, let alone. These creatures, sea foxes, have come and gone without a trace. To capture some of their thoughts and actions can be said to be even more difficult, so Gong Yi did not intend to take the initiative to approach them, but it does not mean that they can detain their players. Gong Yi, who did not hesitate to wait for another day, rushed in with Aruma. After entering the village, he realized that what he thought was exactly two directions, lying on the ground. The corpse of the sea foxes sentence after sentence. Could it be that this place was attacked? Apart from this, Gong Yi couldn't guess any other details. At this time, Aruma was in a corner and found the candy Lan Ying was carrying, and then directly took Gong Yi took a photo. Gong Yi was banging around but couldn't find that. The wall was hollow. Rather than being hollow, it is more like a solid wall, and no information is revealed in it, so where did they go? Did such a big village disappear? It's in Gong Yi. When I looked up, I found that the one I saw for the first time. The sculpture just disappeared without a trace. When I first looked in from a distance, I could always see a sculpture standing at the top of the center of the village, as if to show some sense of its existence. But at this moment that sculpture has disappeared by accident, it can even be said that it has completely dissipated, where it should have existed, but at the same time for Gong Yi, some things are naturally unnecessary. After doing it again, there are some things that make people feel very curious. But after all, the situation is limited, and it is not convenient for me to put everything on the surface and say it clearly, which makes me have some surprises. After all, the next thing is beyond my expectations. Because I saw Lanying in the other, this village looks like one. Only when you step into it, do you realize that things inside can also be opened. From the outside, you can see that there is a barrier obstructing the coma, which is especially blurry. And what I saw the most along the way was the matter of the sea fox, but it did not originate from the existence of Bobo. It seems that the current Bobo is still safe. Yeah, they have not been found again. Only a baby boy was found, and he was still in a coma, with a particularly large claw mark on the back of his neck. It seems that he should have been attacked. But the problem with Lan Ying's strength is that he found that the opponent's speed is too slow, and its reaction speed is also very slow. It can be said that after the reaction, it has basically been beaten by the enemy. I'm in the north, so I occasionally perform missions. In fact, Gong Yi and the others didn't send Aruma out of their minds. At that time, stealing chickens will not be able to turn back rice. This time the mission will fail, and the pirate group has also experienced many strong winds and waves when they are at sea. But he found out that he might not really be suitable for this kind of kung fu. He simply let him eat with him, but it would still be very useful at critical moments. After all, his thunderstorm punch was still able to suppress the last time, but when someone said a few words to him, he directly choked everyone. It has passed, and there has been some convergence in the past few days. Maybe it's because he met Aruma and wanted to maintain her ladylike image, but at this moment, it can't be seen that all the things on his hands. The things he wears have been destroyed, even the most beautiful thing in his hands. The one who loves Zihu, at this time, has been beaten to pieces and thrown aside. If she wakes up and sees it, she will be angry again. So before that, Gong Yi hurriedly took out another one from the warehouse and put it on the ground, and then put away the pieces. Although they were different in length, at least they were all snow white in color, maybe a pattern. Not the one he made before. Nice, but at least the durability is definitely better than that. So Aruma next to him also came over and found that after Lan Ying was lying on the ground, he quickly came over to help him take a look. After realizing that his life was not threatened, he directly carried him and followed in Gong Yi's footsteps. Going into this town, it has to be said that the further you go, the more things about the sea fox become. It was as if someone had really invaded this place, but Gong Yi didn't think that the person who had been killed by himself would come back to life, and the collapse of such a large area of the city would definitely not be able to remove him from that ruins. After being rescued, Shiliu, Chaco and Shiliu's brother would definitely not go back to help. After all, they all hated him very much. Chapter 1033, Chaos. So is the person who made trouble in this place also from the same source as him? If it is, then Gong Yi is. You should consider what method to use to deal with the sea fox. After all, the village is the most central statue as the origin, and all the creatures are basically slaughtered. But it can be seen that under the premise of a considerable number of sea fox species, a small number of people have been killed, even less than 11, but after all, it is still a large area, and a large area of corpses lies on the ground, and that the image on the sculpture appeared was not a sea fox. Could it be that that thing came to life and carried out a massacre in this place? If so, everything can be explained clearly, but at the same time there are some Gong Yi is hard to budget, but that statue is the only thing you can see clearly in this small village when you look inside. If it is said that this matter is being watched by people outside, or that it is controlled by people outside, and then got such an end, it seems to be clear, but it is also a journey along the way. I didn't see any gates open, or there are any signs of life, and there is no hollow place under the stone slabs that come and go. It can be said that the whole village is like the life body has disappeared out of thin air, but why should I leave the blue cherry? A few days later, Gong Yi knew that Lan Ying was just a weapon, and he had no human characteristics, so he should not be taken away together. Those have not been transformed into human beings, and there are no pots with human form. Basically, all of them have perished in this massacre. They were really taken away. All of them can be transformed into human forms, but why is Bo in that range? He really can't transform into a human form, but at the same time, after Bo and Mayer woke up, they found that the surrounding environment was dark, and I have to say that this is a place that has never been experienced before. At this time, when Bobo wanted to confirm contact with Aruma Gongyi again, he found that everything had been controlled. Even the team leader has been put aside, but this is a very critical situation, but whoever wants to attack the Sea Fox clan recently, the eyes of Meyer next to him are also very sharp. After all, as a soldier at Wangwangtai, he was accustomed to such a high-tension life, but he did not consider that someone would blatantly sneak into this village and hide on the side until someone entered this place. And then wipe them out. Before they left, Mayer's deepest impression was actually the blood and corpses everywhere. I have to say that this person is really ruthless. This massacre must have consumed a lot of the Sea Fox's clan, right? But the number of people locked up in this place is also countless. At this time, a person suddenly wandered in front of Meyer. The only person brought by this place was Meyer, because the last time the Sea Fox came to the deck, the chef was still there. Below he was sleeping, so he didn't come with them, and he didn't go with Gong Yi and the others, as if he had never had any contact with the outside world. Moreover, Yu has always been a very silent existence during the journey. Almost no one can arouse his existence, but he is a cook and the person in charge of the whole ship's meals. Fortunately, he still has some sense of existence. But at this moment, no one can really think of him. At this time, Aruma and Gong Yi also remembered them when they were walking. It seemed that there was still a cook on the boat. When they ran to the door, they found that the fence had been blocked. When the two of them tried to move the thing away, they found that they didn't have that kind of strength at all. No wonder the people of the Fox tribe didn't feel any nervousness when they let them in, and they were not afraid of them breaking in from this place. Go. It turned out that the so-called fence could not be moved at all, so someone opened that door, because after all, when they watched a few of them leave, the Sea Fox clan sealed the fence, so they saw this before. The barrier has been opened, and it can be said that someone deliberately let them in, but did not want them to leave. Therefore, a double measure was taken. Does that prove that the person who really slaughtered this Sea Fox clan will appear in this place after a while and take the two of them away together? It must be convenient to conduct an investigation in this way. But some things do become more difficult. So Gong Yi searched around here to see if there were any resources available, searched every house, and found that the living conditions and living habits of sea foxes are actually not much different from those of humans. Chapter 1034. Kidnapping. But this is not the point at this moment. The point is to investigate. If all the conditions are used, how can we find those? The people who are hidden in those. The sea fox, after all, they do live in this small town, and the service frequency is relatively high. To find a lot of their brothers and sisters lying on the ground during the trip. If they were really released, or if they were really rescued, they would definitely very angry. So Gong Yi has to think of a surefire policy that they can't be seen as the mastermind behind the scenes. The two of them can't bear such a responsibility. Gong Yi sent it for the first time, and Bobo came to the Sea Fox family's territory. He didn't want to cause trouble for him, and he should return to his hometown instead of following them. The pirates traveled on this island, but he was already one of the crew members, so he couldn't just let him go. If possible, Gong Yi would definitely persuade Bobo to go back to sea with them again, but what he should do now is not to persuade her to come back, but to save his companions and his own first. After all, Mayer was still in their hands at this time. Just when the two were thinking about how to do things, a man in black suddenly appeared beside them. A sinister light flashed on the face of the man in black. Even if he was covering his face, Gong Yi could still see his true expression. It could even be said that he should have planned all this long ago. After all, the Sea Fox clan has countless casualties at this moment. Whether those people were imprisoned or brought to a safe place by the elders of the Sea Fox clan, Gong Yi does not can judge. If they are all in, if it is safe, then Gong Yi, I will never come in to save them, but it will only add to their troubles. But after all, I still don't know what their situation is. If I had appeared earlier, I might have been able to call them, and Meyer had not been in contact, but the life card reminded me that there was no problem with entering the field. Everyone in this place, as a member of the crew of the pirates, has a life card, which is bound to the Captain Gong Yi, and even Bobo has a card that can prove all of them. Things are alive, and the breath of life is stable. I really didn't expect that this small island would still be able to go out. Do you too want to be like them? If you don't want to, I advise you to leave this place quickly, and don't stop me from enjoying this feast. After hearing this, Gong Yi didn't. I got goosebumps all over my body. I never thought that there would be such a pervert. What a feast of life. This is simply an inhuman massacre. But Aruma on the side gave you a look, but didn't say anything more. He only needs to listen to the captain's orders. If he really wants to think about the Haihong family, he will try his best to save people, and even if he is anxious, there is no way. Bobo will come back, and once she returns this Bobo, if she wants to survive with the Sea Fox clan, then the action and plan of saving people will be improved. In fact, the most important thing is that for Aruma, this man in black is very familiar. It can be said that he has seen him somewhere, but he can't remember who he is. Could it be sent by the Admiral of the Navy? The people who came out. It's like their speed is too impressive. It took so long for them to understand the people who were sent out, and they carried out a massacre, and this massacre also makes people feel a little bit. Flaws, why are all the sea foxes that can't be transformed? But at the same time, Gong Yi discovered something that made people think hard. The tattoo on the arm of the man in black was hidden by himself. Seen on top of chocolate, if this person is chocolate, then Gong Yi should really change his view on him. I didn't expect that person could do such a thing. After all, this is exactly two extremes. Okay, at the beginning, if chocolate can do such a thing, I may think that he is an enemy, but he is someone from the same world. Gong Yi doesn't think he has such talent. And I have seen it before. He is just an architect, like a chicken without a hand. If he had the ability to resist, he would have attacked Marshal Tucci directly. Where would he have a turn? Wait until he arrives and then replace it. He is taking revenge. And it lives on a new island with Shiliu and Shiliu's older brother. It can be said that life should be very moisturizing. There is no need come to this place to ask for hardships, and once it is exposed, other problems will arise. Chapter 1035, Men in Black. Gong Yi believes that he is not that stupid, but it does not mean that all this can be within his control. After all, from any point of view, some of the things that chocolate does at this moment are very impressive. Incomprehensible. But if it's really chocolate, then Gong Yi is. You should look at the way you see people. You shouldn't believe it today. The rest of the people say that they are people who have traveled through the world, and these. The sea fox is very innocent. If they say it is because of the hatred of their own people. If Mayer is implicated, Gong Yi will order and judge, but if he is forced to be kidnapped and killed because of his own reasons, then he will definitely feel a little more guilty. But at this moment, the screams of the waves came from the underground again. At this time, the man in black's face froze, and then quickly disappeared into the air. Gong Yi and Aruma chased after him, but found that the other party disappeared so fast that they didn't catch any trace at all of the man in black. The breath after the similar transformation remained in the air. Gong Yi keenly captured that touch, and then grabbed it casually. I admire him, not to mention that I didn't notice that breath, and I couldn't even capture that shadow in the air. If it wasn't for the fact that he zoomed in and lit the light after he caught it, he wouldn't have found the existence of that thing at all. He would be wandering in that place constantly, like a little tadpole in the air, ready at any time. Get into another person's body. If you guessed correctly, this thing should be a kind of parasite. It can grow dozens of times, or shrink, and then burrow into other people's bodies. The breath of Gongyi Button didn't say anything, just looked. It became colder and colder, as if remembering something. If you guessed correctly, this person should have attacked the entire village, after all. How could the sea foxes kill each other? It's impossible for them to be so good. There is only one possibility, that is, someone indirectly. The place has done some incredible things, so now it seems that no one other than the man in black can do it. At least at this moment, Gongyi and the people on the boat have been staying together, and no one will mention there is such a possibility, but the important thing is not to find out who the man in black is, but to find out where they are. A piece of upturned tile. So he called Gongyi directly, and when he passed, Gongyi put that little black gas in a small bottle, hung it around his waist, and went directly towards Aruma. I have to say that his eyes are really sharp, and this place is where Bobo and his party of sea foxes hide. Of course, there were also Meyer and a few people hiding inside, and when they heard the footsteps coming from above, a few people huddled down and there were others. Sea fox, I always thought it was the man in black who slaughtered them came again, so they held their breaths between each other, for fear of revealing a little bit of sound and being discovered. But at this time, Gongyi took out his life card and found that Meyer and this direction are just connected. If you guessed correctly, and if Aruma is not wrong, it should be this place. At this moment, the two of them walked in, but Gongyi couldn't see anything in the darkness, until he walked around a corner, when everything in front of him became pitch black, the one tied to his side. The bottle suddenly, a dazzling light began to shine. At this time, there was a sudden scream from inside, which made Gongyi a little different, and then quickly flew inside with Aruma, and found that there were some sea fox feeding, and the innermost one he was twitching constantly, looking like he was sick. But in fact, it turned out that it was about to give birth after getting closer, which made Gongyi look around and found that Meyer and others were safe here, so he asked some sea foxes nearby for ideas. After all, he was a captain, not a midwife. But at this moment, Bobo suddenly led some people to stand out. I have to say that he still has that kind of general demeanor at this moment, but after helping the child born by this sea fox, that child did not appear in the swaddle, but transformed into a black aura. At this time, he rushed directly towards the pregnant woman's neck, as if she was about to break the other's neck. At this moment, Gongyi wanted to reach out to stop it, but found that Bobo himself was standing in front of the pregnant woman one step ahead. Chapter 1036. In a Day's Third More. I have to say, if Gongyi is that pregnant woman, at this moment, not only will I be grateful to him, but I will even forget the back of his hero and be in a daze, but at the same time, what everyone can't expect is that at this moment all things got together, and it was time to make Bobo successful. Such a little fox who stayed on the pirate ship for so long, finally successfully transformed into a human shape. I have to say that it is still very handsome, although the age may be a little younger, probably only 17 or 18 years old, but the strong arms and body are hard to ignore. The sea fox hid behind Bobo, and kept exchanging a sound that was stronger than the sound, as if to summon Bobo's courage. This also shocked Gongyi, but he couldn't tell. The flower shape is a very sudden thing, but who made that black gas come so violently? At this time, the one in the depths of Gongyi. The small bottle began to sway violently, as if it was about to fly out of it, but there was no way that Gongyi would let him have such a choice. First of all, he took out the second one to seal the other one, but at this time, Bobo had already strode forward and directly pressed the black thing in the center of the two hands. Bobo raised his head to look at the place, and found that his hand didn't seem to be like the previous claws. On the side of Aruma also smiled back at her and looked at him quietly like this. Seeing the atmosphere of the two of them, Gongyi didn't. I sighed with emotion. I didn't expect that the captain of my own was not as good as an ordinary crew member, but at this time, Bobo's excitement and feelings for this black, the inexplicable hostility of the gas was suddenly mixed together. Then he quickly bit the thing, as if he wanted to tear him apart and eat him. Gong Yi didn't have time to stop him, and the bottle beside him suddenly shattered and flew to Bobo's direction, killing her. S body was enveloped in it. At this time, Aruma tried desperately to disperse the fog, or to expel them from Bobo's side, but found that it was all in vain. No one could approach Bobo under such circumstances, only those black chi were stopped around. I have to say that some panic spread at this moment, and even those Hai Yuhi are constantly exchanging with each other, as if they want to prove that this black gas is very dangerous, but for Gong Yi in fact, I don't have any feeling, and I don't even think he is a threat at all. After all, at this moment, everything has entered Bobo's stomach. Her stomach is like a bottomless pit. There was a loud noise on the bones, as if they were reorganizing. Could the black energy give him some different reactions? But at this time, Gong Yi realized that he and Aruma were trapped in Gong Yi's nay, and the surrounding sea foxes are separated, so only the two of them know what happened to Bobo in such a strange circle. His perception of the outside world also separates those sea foxes' eyes towards Bobo. And at the same time, Gong Yi also keenly captured some other information. If there is a way for Gong Yi to escape from this place, then just like Aruma now, he kept screaming in this place. Bobo's name seems to want to pull him back from the ropes in that Uzumaki match. But in fact, it can be said to be in vain. After all, the connection with the outside world has been cut off at this time. Even if he breaks his throat, he can't hear it. Therefore, it is said that Gong Yi stopped Aruma's behavior, and the two found it. A stone squatted aside, trying to see what kind of behavior Bobo would have. But just when the two of them dropped their butts, those black foxes rushed in from the black gas in groups. It was indeed like a big wave. Suddenly, it felt like it came in. That is, everything is still there. When they were not expected, they swarmed in droves. Does this count as doing their best for their companions? They may think that a sea fox can't squeeze in unilaterally, so a large number of them all flew in at this moment, making it impossible for the two of them to start. The last two people, the ones that were submerged, were all sea foxes. This black chi is still there. From the outside to the inside, it continuously absorbs everything that comes into contact with it, and even a few stones fly over like this, but the first few sea foxes who have turned into humanoids help them put clean things up. Don't hold the sea fox on your body from above, but I have to say that these fluffy little foxes feel good. Chapter 1037, Transformation. However, Gong Yi and the others are not very convenient to do other things, but at this moment, Aruma considered another factor. If they can call Bobo over with a good rope method, then the two of them it should have been successful long ago. What really depends on is the secrets of the sea fox. Other than that, he can't think of anything else that can completely call people back, and the sea fox must have their own way of contacting this race, or in other words, there is a way to wake them up. But after all, people and little foxes have the same goal, and these foxes all looked up at themselves. I'm really sorry for the memory you showed at first, but now it seems that you really need your help and we were able to get in touch with him unilaterally. But I hope you can be one of the media. After all, if you want to touch him, it is indeed a little difficult, but you are different. To him you should be familiar people, we are just some outsiders. After hearing this, Gong Yi didn't. I was stunned for a while. I didn't think that they were really the same people as Bobo. At first I thought, even if everything happened, then Bobo will still choose to recognize these. The little fox is a family member. After all, things have been put in front of us. After all, it is different. The leader of the group actually said something like this. This little fox regarded them as relatives from the very beginning. To even consider him, where all the foxes belong, as a guest house, just to meet his parents or just to come back and see how things are going, but at this moment, Gong Yi may be more shocking. Are you sure that the two of you are not more suitable for him? You are all from the same species, and aren't his parents in this? If possible, wouldn't it be better for you to help each other? I always feel that as long as the two of us take action it's basically just cluttering things up. After hearing this, the team leader waved, picked up the full photo in front of him, and tapped Gong Yi twice on the ground. A special image immediately appeared in his mind, which was the one who brought Bobo back. At that time, his slender figure curled up in the far corner of the whole ship, and he had no intention of sharing things and residences with them at all. Gong Yi was always with him at that time, and he chose this method without eating or drinking. Since he felt that everyone was targeting him, he might as well feel that the people around him liked her and wanted to doing everything with him. I also want to advance and retreat with him, so that the little fox will have some other methods and help. After seeing this scene, Gong Yi suddenly understood why the team leader said this. Some things were true. Maybe he would have a better temper and patience with him. Later, after Aruma, the two of them with the same entry and exit, the number and time of worrying about Bobo will be less. But she didn't expect that she still remembers this matter, and her memory is still fresh. After all, the scenes she saw in such a mind were all high-definition pictures, and she didn't expect that he would cherish this memory so completely, and at the same time for Gong Yi, it was also completely ignorant of what Bobo would think. But at this moment, Gong Yi was very moved. After all, this is a leapfrog event. He never thought that he would remember it so clearly, and at the same time, all the potential of Bobo was fully stimulated at this moment. He said it was just a preliminary move. There will be more and more shocking pictures in the future. After all, those black chi are constantly pouring into its body frantically. Even Gong Yi didn't encounter such a situation, so he could only stand helplessly and watch with Aruma. However, at this time, the old man asked Gong Yi again, asking him if he was willing to take the responsibility of the Sea Fox clan. Honor, go and help Bobo get out of that place. Gong Yi naturally agreed to this point. Even if he didn't do it himself, he could actually come out of that place based on his own strength. After all, he still had to believe that Bobo, this little fox, would have unlimited potential, but depending on the nervous look made it difficult for him to grasp some of the degrees in it. What if he was said to be cold-blooded if he didn't help? So Gong Yi agreed, even though the face of Aruma on the side was also worried. What this little fox is like, they know better, and they also know what experience Bobo needs, which is not a bad thing for him, so they are not willing to do it. Chapter 1038. Intimidating Color. Second more. In fact, it is mainly this aspect, which makes Gong Yi unable to start. Although his friendship with Bobo is very good, he has never considered going to his inner world, and now, this matter may sound like it's too mysterious. Could it be that the little fox family have such special abilities, but at the same time as a medium and shadow? In fact Gong Yi is. It's equivalent to reading the memories between the two people, but wait until you see it was only at the end that I realized that all this was not so simple, and what I shuttled was Bobo's memory from childhood to adulthood. From when he was a child, he was forced to travel with his parents alone, to what he did after meeting with Gong Yi and the others, all of which surprised Gong Yi. After all, whether it was from the beginning or now, I am the same to Bobo now, but I don't know what happened to the man in black. He suddenly came to this place to attack after he entered. I wonder if the cooperation between Mayor and Aluma could solve it. After all, there are too many people with special abilities. Ye can't cope with several people. But at this time, the team leader of another fox suddenly said that he could help solve everything, which made Gong Yi feel relieved and used it as a medium to make a connection between them. And at the same time, at this moment, the feeling of uneasiness in Gong Yi's heart has been magnified to infinite times. He always feels that there are some things that make him feel difficult to control, but at the same time there is a problem. It was also revealed at this moment, those little foxes suddenly had a Yuhi-colored sign in the corner of their eyes. But there is no Bobo in front of him. It can be said that he seems to be completely outside such a range of changes, which makes Aruma feel a little nervous, and makes Gong Yi suddenly want to withdraw that touch of spiritual power. Come. But this time is too late, at least for Gong Yi. He has now been completely bound in Bobo's thoughts, and has entered into such a mighty river of memories along with his memories. From Bobo leaving home when he was a child, to meeting Gong Yi later, to the current situation, suddenly Gong Yi can share this vision and situation with him. But now the situation seems to have become more complicated. What is Dao Bobo thinking? But at this time, I can feel the same with him. That is a very surprising thing. That man in black is talking and threatening him, but what is the deal between them? Is there some other treasures in this little fox's village? But the statue on the top is a very strange thing. He has disappeared, enough to reveal any other information. But at this time, Gong Yi could only hear the man in black, but he couldn't detect what Bobo said. He only knew that he didn't speak so neatly because of his transformation just now. But the man in black kept dragging him and asking him to talk to him, which made Gong Yi a little bit angry. Didn't see Bobo uncomfortable, but there are some things that she needs to face by herself, and Gong Yi erected a protective barrier for him, but it could only last for so long. Just like today, no one could control that time. That black air flew into Bobo's body, and no one could bear the burden for Gong Yi. It's a feeling of trepidation now. Because before leaving, the team leader also reminded Gong Yi that if Bobo couldn't wake up, then Gong Yi who entered other people's world would not be able to fly out of that place. So it can be regarded as a double blow in this place, but Gong Yi did not give up Bobo. He believed that the child would definitely come out of this place safe and sound, and it was a good thing to feel the same way with her. But when he spoke, the man in black kept floating in his direction, as if he could see himself. But at this time, Gong Yi didn't worry about this. He had to know where he was. If he guessed correctly, it should be somewhere in Bobo's body. If the man in black could detect his place, then you might want to praise him. But it doesn't mean that he will be afraid of him under this situation, even if Bobo can't beat him alone. But the two are different, and he still has a unique trick that he has not used. If the man in black wants to die with Gong Yi, if so, then I don't mind having two tricks with him. Anyway, there are Aluma and Mayor outside. I will give you some little foxes to take care of, and if the men in black only have these two breaths connected, then they are actually very safe outside. Just need Gong Yi kick the wave, and it was enough to take care of everything inside. But at this time, he saw Bobo appear in front of him. Chapter 1039. Control, 3rd. It seems that he can still move freely in his body, and even what he does is not under any control. It is not difficult to see that it should be the entity after the vitrification. It is still very beautiful, with slender legs and upper and lower body. The proportions are still perfect. If you let it out, you will inevitably attract a wave of eyes from a little girl. At this time, Gong Yi doesn't. She sighed with emotion, but at this time, when Bobo saw his figure, he couldn't help but look at himself in surprise. How did you come to this place and then took these two things? That is, I was afraid that you would have a problem, and there must be a connection between the two of us, otherwise how could I be so familiar with him when I saw him? Well, you certainly won't do any good by staying in this place, and you're just a ray of soul. If you stay in this place for a long time, there will be problems. At that time, your weaker and weaker soul will make it inconvenient for you to do things. If your mental strength is weak, your perception of the surrounding will definitely become weaker. At that time, you may not be able to be this captain of a pirate ship. At this time, Gong Yi smiled and took a step forward and touched his head. I didn't expect that he has started to think about others now. Speaking, being able to express these emotions clearly, all of a sudden. I learned a long story from myself. But there was one thing that made him feel unpredictable. After all, at present, it is not that he can dominate all this, but that everything is still in the process of waiting. I just hope that he can follow nature and solve everything. I don't know if you will be hungry today, but many people outside are worrying about you, and I hope you can go back earlier. There is something delicious waiting for you. It would be a good thing to have a caregiver, not to mention that you people are not worried about you. If you can, you might as well live in this place for a while to find out what your race will do. After hearing this, Bobo's eyes filled with tears. If he really wants to understand, he may not be able to set off with them. He said that he is still not good for people like Gong Yi. It's very reluctant, and it's hard to change shape, so you should follow them to travel again. But if he was really left in this place, he would be a little unwilling in his heart, so at this moment for Bobo to reject Gong Yi, request, Ran understood the reason and didn't force it any further. Wanting to stay and leave is just his own idea, and he planned to do more interference from the beginning. Want to stay and leave is your own will, we will not make more interference, but I hope you can face your heart, don't make some decisions that you will regret for the rest of your life just because you want to be with me. We can choose you to stay in this place for a while as a compromise, and let's relax and see if we can recruit more new crew members. But in fact, the last sentence is just nonsense. After all, it seems that it is not a wise choice to choose some small foxes as the crew of the ship, and on the premise that there is already one. I really don't know, the Navy. The general will not find this place. After all, some things are difficult to budget. And from the current point of view, some of Bobo's conditions have gradually stabilized in this place. At the beginning, when they traveled at sea with them, they were still a little uncomfortable. Every day, there will be some special reactions, but when they arrive at this place there will be no such things in the future, but they will get along well with them. Including language, it is also interoperable, so it is much better to be in this place than to stay with humans. This is actually something that Gangyi knows in his heart, but Aruma and the people on the boat must be. I was reluctant to leave Bobo like this, so besides this matter, Aluma didn't really want to agree. The people on the real ship hope more that Bobo will accompany them all the time, and now she imagines that she may need more trials in the future. But staying in this place does not mean that he can't fall out of love, and even he will have more other opportunities and aspects. Just like the Sea of Stones, there will be a corresponding thing in every place, just depends on your own intentions. But at this time, Aluma and Mayer were locked outside, waiting for those people to come. I have to say that the strength of this man in black is really strong. After separating the two bodies, including some people, he can still have the third one arrived at that place, and there was a sound of footsteps at the entrance of the cave, and it was an unfamiliar one. So several people began to hold their breath, waiting for the arrival. Chapter 1040, Opening. How to say, this feeling of rapid heartbeat fills my heart for a moment, and it is still a completely bad feeling. I have to say that at this moment, the people who appeared at the entrance of the hole made the little foxes, Aluma and Mayer, feel in their hearts. It doesn't feel good. Mayer stood in a reasonable place, and used his eyes on the observation deck to observe everything around him, and found that no one was approaching this place at all. Could it be his own illusion just now? But that's impossible. Footsteps, it came clearly beside his ears. But no one really came to him. It was like an illusion that something appeared in this place, and then it exploded to another level in an instant, which made Mayer feel a little overwhelmed, but at the same time it was also the first time that Mayer had such a collaboration with Gangyi. And for some tendencies, Mayer doesn't know what kind of routine Gangyi is. Once the level of cooperation between the two people is 0, then this time there will definitely be problems big and small, and at the same time for Mayer, found a small opening next to it, and it seemed that footsteps came from that place. So Mayer stepped forward and turned around Gangyi's corner, motioning him to follow him over there to see how the situation was over there. When the two of them actually arrived at that place, they realized that there was no such thing at all. What a cave, just a ray of light came in. And at this moment, Gangyi turned his head sharply, and found that there was a person standing behind them like this, and he had that kind of black-clothed temperament. If you guessed correctly, it should be the one who devoured Bobo just now. That dark shadow. But why he appeared in this place really surprised everyone, and even made Laolu a little unbelievable. How could the defense of this place be so weak? Even if it is a strange place, it should not be to such an extent. And this time Mayer was pulled in by himself. It was indeed an unexpected thing, but there is a scout from the watchtower. It is more convenient to do things in this place anyway, and can be under the heavy fog. Even if it is invisible, everything is not revealed by Akatsuki, then there is a place where the graphics can be accurately and clearly drawn, at least for Mayer, who is looking for the man in black in the whiteness. Traces can be said to be effortless. But at this moment, it also made Mayer release another fact. This person has those little fox smells, and some of their hairs stick to it. If you guess correctly, this should also be one of them, the person transformed by the little fox, but why did he appear here? The same man in black didn't say anything to them. He just stood aside and looked at Gong Yi's direction. Mayer realized that the other party was just after trying to find Gong Yi. He took a step back, and in the next second, the man in black rushed forward, waved his sleeves and took Gong Yi away. And at this time, before Gong Yi could react, he was directly taken away by the man in black. It must be said that the breath on the other party's body was still very reassuring, at least there was no sense of danger. But it doesn't mean that Gong Yi will let go of any vigilance against him. He should have something, and at this moment, Mayer must be very anxious when he is left alone. But the cave was very quiet, leaving only that beam of light shining from inside. This made Mayer very curious about the light, so he first turned his eyes directly to the small hole, but found that the place was too bright. If he looked directly at it, there would definitely be a problem. It just so happened that there was a piece of debris on the ground at this time, but fortunately, Mayer picked it up directly and put it on the top. Small mouth, when it was aligned, another kind of colorful Madara light appeared on the stone, which suddenly attracted Mayer's attention, causing her to study this thing until Gong Yi came back. But in fact, Gong Yi at this time has accompanied the man in black to another place, just like the real ones. The place where the little fox lives is completely different from the one outside. The huge village, this place is more popular some. There are many children laughing on the small roads of Chinmo. I have to say that this is the real place where they live, and what I saw before may just be shaped by one person. But in the next second, Gong Yi knew what it was. The man in black strode forward, not caring about whether he was behind. Keep up. When he came back to his senses, I found that the man in black has disappeared, but the little fox is constantly revolving around him, as if he is looking at something.